Hello and welcome to the last starting line for the year. I'm Sarah Allen. Like the Minnesota Legislature, which has come to the end of its first year of the biennium, we are coming to the finishing line of our 2013 series. The purpose of Starting Line is to highlight a new bill each week, tracking it through the legislative process and letting you know when and if it ultimately becomes law. This year, we highlighted 16 bills, 8 sponsored by DFLers and 8 sponsored by Republicans. The bills have covered everything from raising the minimum wage to creating a special education scholarship program to making it unlawful for employers to require employees to provide their social media passwords as a condition of employment. Some of the bills have not moved out of committee. Others have been offered up as amendments to larger bills. But were any passed into law? Let's find out. For our last starting line of 2013, we look back at the bills we have covered and ask Reviser of Statutes Michelle Timmons to explain the complexities of the legislative process. Once a bill has been heard in its original language, it can be re-referred to another committee or sent to the floor. Our starting line bill, House File 909, that requires parents seeking a divorce or legal separation to take classes, is in a different committee than it was originally referred to. So is House File 1670, a bill that would appropriate money to help Minnesotans looking to start a business and small businesses needing some help to expand. But a very common occurrence among the bills we featured this session was for them to remain in the committee they were referred to. Here's a look at some of the bills that did not make it out of committee. House File 10 called for raising minimum wage in Minnesota. While Representative Joe Mullery's bill was not heard in committee, Representative Ryan Winkler's minimum wage bill was passed by the House. Similar language was passed by the Senate, but the bill did not make it out of conference committee. House File 293 would make it unlawful for employers to require employees to provide their social media passwords, such as those for Facebook and Twitter, as a condition of employment. House File 1090 would require the state lottery to install electronic lottery terminals at any convenience store that wants one. House File 1577 would establish a special education scholarship program. And House File 1786 would reduce the size of the Minnesota Legislature. Reviser of Statutes Michelle Timmons says a bill that is referred to a committee but never heard isn't dead.
Because we're in a biennial session, that bill is still alive, but in that committee, so it could be taken up and heard in the committee during the next session.
House File 135, a bill that would permit laser sights to be used by visually impaired hunters, did have a hearing in its original committee. It received a motion for possible inclusion into an omnibus bill, but was ultimately not accepted. Just because a bill remains in a committee doesn't mean the issue can't be brought up on the House floor. Take, for instance, Representative Bob Barrett's bill, House File 1787, a bill he says would help keep the state from having to dip into its general fund to make up the e-poll tab difference for the state's share of the cost to cover the stadium to house the Minnesota Vikings. It's still in its first committee, the Government Operations Committee. But during the floor debates on the Omnibus Tax Bill Conference Committee report, Barrett brought up the topic.
We've missed an opportunity. When you look at this stadium, it's $1 billion stadium. And we were told originally that the Minnesota Vikings would be contributing about $477 million to the stadium. We know now, or at least I do, that they might not be contributing hardly anything at all. A lot of their money they're getting is from private sources. That's fine, that's good. A lot of people didn't know that. Everyone said Vikings are contributing this amount of money. The Vikings are not contributing this amount of money. They might not be contributing anything at all.
Representative Lincheski says the e-poll tab shortfall will be made up by raising cigarette taxes and closing a business tax loophole.
There will be no doubt that all of the Vikings stadium needs are funded.
Even if a bill remains in committee, it can be amended onto another bill that passes out of the House. That's what happened to House File 1771, a bill that establishes the Student Religious Liberties Act. Part of House File 1771 was amended to the anti-bullying bill, House File 826, that passed out of the House. We also saw bills take the form of amendments and fail to pass the House. For instance, House File 521 is a bill that would permit Sunday, Thanksgiving, and Christmas Eve off sales of intoxicating liquor. An amendment based on the bill failed in the House. Likewise, an amendment based on House File 464, a bill designed to give parents and guardians more control over what surveys their children or dependents take in school, failed to be amended onto the anti-bullying bill. A bill can also be offered as an amendment in committee. For example, House File 957, a bill that would ban school construction near former landfills, was offered as an amendment to the Omnibus Education Finance Bill, but due to lack of support, the bill's sponsor, Representative Detmer, withdrew his amendment. Language from one starting line bill made it all the way into the House's bonding bill. House File 793 appropriates money for intercity passenger rail projects. The appropriation, although less than its original amount, was included in the House bonding bill. However, the legislature passed a slimmed-down capital investment bill on the last day of session that did not include money for intercity passenger rail. Language from another bill we featured this session made it into the Senate Omnibus K-12 bill. House File 31 would have increased state reimbursement for reduced-price school lunch meals, but language from House File 31 was dropped from the Omnibus K-12 bill. House File 1405, a bill that appropriates money to help those who are affected by problem gambling, was included in the Omnibus Health and Human Services Bill Conference Committee report. We have come to the close of our 2013 starting line recap, and although no starting line bills have yet to be passed into law, the process has been very informative. And according to Reviser of Statutes Michelle Timmons, these bills could always come back.
In Minnesota, we have a biennial legislative session, which means that it lasts 2 years. So this year, 2013, is the first year of the biennium. So bills that are introduced this year but not passed are still alive, if you will, and can be acted upon next year in 2014.
Let's do a quick recap of all the bills we have featured here on Starting Line. All 16 of our bills had their introduction, first reading, and were referred to a committee. 2 bills were re-referred to another committee. That was House File 957, a ban on school construction near landfills, and House File 909, education requirements for parents seeking a divorce. 2 bills were offered up as amendments in committee. Those bills were House File 31 and House File 957, again, the ban on school construction near landfills. 2 amendments on the House floor were based on bills, the Sunday liquor sales one and the parental notice given to parents before their children take a survey. Both did not get enough support. The Religious Liberties Act was amended on the anti-bullying bill that passed out of the House, and House File 31 about reduced-price school lunch reimbursement made it into the Senate Omnibus K-12 bill, but it was taken out during conference committee. And House File 1405, a bill that appropriates money for problem gambling, was included in the Omnibus Health and Human Services Bill Conference Committee report. You can learn more about our starting line bills and other bills through our online news service, Session Daily. This nonpartisan news source employs a staff of professional writers, editors, and photographers that provide you with in-depth coverage of the Minnesota House of Representatives during session and when news warrants. To see the past bills featured on Starting Line, go to www.youtube.com/MNHouseInfo and click on the Starting Line playlist. Thanks for being part of our show and tracking bills through the legislative process with us. As always, remember, thousands of bills get introduced every legislative session in Minnesota. All of them first have to cross the starting line.